All right, so it's been a few weeks since I last posted, but I just, with all this stuff going on right now with pharma. So last time I kind of alluded to pharma, the pharma issue, right? And um, I it's complicated. Okay, so pharmaceuticals, drugs, and addiction, right, is actually pretty much top in terms of what kills people. Um, Basically, you can tie addiction and all these things to no, but between both food and drugs as the number one killers in the United States by a significant margin. In fact, that's partly why statistically our life expectancy has decreased over the last decade. Um, Specifically since 2016. It's 7 years, but realistically, the signs were there prior to that. Um, so I kind of talked about this, but here's the thing, right? And some of this data is a little bit old, right? But it's only gotten worse. So I did a lot of this research in 2020. I did a giant study. I'll provide sourcing if anyone wants it. If anyone fucking cares, okay? But basically, pharma is making about 13 point something percent profit over expenditures, right? Now, from as an industry, that's almost double the next highest industry on the planet. Okay, so they're clearly making too much. Okay, so I've already kind of outlined how expensive that is for the federal government, right? So anyone who gives a shit about how much we spend federally, it should care about this. If you, I mean, last video I literally said if we could get expenditures down to even what the rest of the world spends on pharma, we're talking about the total expenditure we have on the entire military. And don't get me started on the military, but like there's things with the military we can do to improve it. Okay, but that's not the point of this. The point of this is that if we even got our expenses on these pharmaceuticals down to what international customers pay, we've already saved our entire military budget. Okay, like that's not an exaggeration. That's a fucking fact. So, you know, here's the thing, right? We spend hundreds, about we spend 66 billion, billions of tens of billions of dollars every year. And the number I have in my head is actually a couple years old. It's probably higher, but we spend tens of billions of dollars every year developing or provide via NIH, which is National Institute of Health, funding pharmaceutical companies. Okay, that's a direct expenditure. Okay, like that's we are literally spending tens of billions of dollars every year to fund NIH. And I don't have an issue with NIH. I don't have an issue with NIH developing drugs to cure our fucking problems. All right? That's important. So the problem that I have is that these companies, right, they take this money, which is covering a large portion of the percentages, and then they a lot of this research is done via government funded labs, via hospital or sorry college funded labs. A lot of this work is done by interns or post grad students for free, specifically because they're trying to get their citizenship, trying to finish their PhD, whatever, right? So, and in fact, if you look at the exact numbers of what these pharmaceutical companies actually spend on developing the product, the majority of their expenditures is actually on advertising. if your drug is so good, why would you need to advertise it? So the point is that they don't spend that much money developing these drugs, but they make billions. In fact, it's like it's not multi-trillion, but it's in the trillions dollar industry that makes double the next highest, like, possible companies that exist, right? Like, you have tech stocks, which are somewhere in like the 7% range. They're in the mid 13% range. Nothing compares, at least to the S&P 500. Okay, so pharmaceuticals are making an extraordinary amount of profit, right? 3% was considered good a century ago. And you're talking 13 and a half, almost 14%, that these pharmaceutical companies are making dollar expenditures. Okay, this is insane. Like, the most optimized system for exploiting people, exploiting lives on the planet is the US stock market. Like, and I might be exaggerating a little bit there, but I'm sure they can get more optimal, but fundamentally, the US stock market is one of the most optimal at extracting money from its companies. And pharmaceuticals are nearly double everyone else by holy shit. Okay? So I'm saying this not to be inflammatory. I'm saying this because y'all need to wake the fuck up. Like, this is a huge fucking problem. And these pharmaceutical companies aren't spending shit. They're not. They don't have to. Free labor. They have government funding. They have tax-free funding, right, via a lot of these organizations, like, hey, I'm going to go donate to cancer research because I'm a good person. Or I'm going to go donate to cancer research because I want to get into a different tax bracket. I want to go donate to cancer research so I don't have to pay as much in taxes. That is a legitimate thing. And so these pharmaceutical companies don't have to spend shit. Their development cost is nearly nothing. So I'm saying all of this, right? Because that's why they're getting that much profit. And if they didn't spend as much, I saw one drug that had like $50 million on research, maybe $100 million on research, somewhere in there, and $5 billion on marketing. Okay? Like, that's just one. Like, I can't even begin to tell you about the rest, right? I don't even have the time or energy to dig into the rest. But there's lots of indicators here that clearly prove this is a significant problem, right? I say significant problem because they're extorting you. They're extorting every one of us. Because they're extorting our government medical system, right? Our Medicare. They're extorting our Medicare Advantage bullshit, right? They're extorting all this. And they're going to get their money. Because people want to live. People are desperate to live. That's why so many people have given up. We have the mechanisms in place. What I mean is that legally, we're actually able to regulate these pharmaceutical companies. So they go request a patent because, of course, patents are important. Patents protect people's intellectual interest. I put in this energy to develop this thing. I should make some money. Like, I have no way, shape, or form advocating against a patent system, right? It's actually coded into our Constitution, and it's been incredibly intelligent that they did that. My issue is the abuse of that system. So what I mean is that XYZ, right, that one drug that I kind of referenced earlier, where they spent $5 billion on advertising and only about $50 to $100 billion on actually developing. And I don't even know how true that 50 to 100 billion dollars is, because a lot of the research is free for them due to all of the things I already mentioned, i.e., free labor, free, government funding, or free nonprofit donations, right? So all of that shit, they don't spend a goddamn thing in the grand scheme of things. And then they're selling this stuff for 5 times what the rest of the world even pays for it. Okay, so here's the thing: they requested a patent, right, which is effectively a monopoly. Anti-monopoly laws exist in this country, at a federal level and at state levels, right? So, and those laws don't say you can't make profit. They just simply say if you have a monopoly, you're subject to regulation, right? And so, antitrust law, right? So, we already have the system in place. They've submitted for a patent. They have legal protections for their product, which they deserve. Anyone deserves. Where we need to intervene is we need to create a regulatory body that actually says you spent only $100 million actually developing this medication. We're not funding your advertising. We're not funding that bullshit on the new you see between your Fox or CNN thing saying, take this medication with these side effects, right? We're not funding that. That's on you. You spent only $100 million, and side note, of that $100 million, you got grants, donations via these nonprofits that we're all tracking, which is all already tracked. Should be tracked, and if it's not tracked, then we have a serious problem within our taxation system, which probably is there. But it shouldn't be, and we all legally should not be there, right? There shouldn't be an issue. So we can clearly see what they spent, right? They can post these invoices and they can say, hey, we want a patent. We want protection for our product. We want to make, money because we spent this much to develop it. Sure, you deserve that. Where what I'm arguing is that that because you have a patent protecting your product, as long as you have a patent protecting your product, you're required to submit to regulation. If it costs you $100 million to develop this drug, and each dose of it is, is a daily dose, right? Let's just use this as an example, right? Like hypothetical. A daily dose, and we expect 1 million people to need it immediately, right? Daily dose over the next 5 years, right? Those 1 million people, 1 million times 365 is $365 million, right? If they take one pill a day, okay? So one pill a day, $365 million, you spend $100 million. I feel like that's a pretty good fucking return on investment. A 3.5%, 365% return on your investment? Yeah, that's fucking good. That's insane. And that's an easy thing because we're giving you protection for your product. We're making sure that no one else can reproduce it. We're granting you a monopoly. We are circumventing antitrust laws because of your ingenuity. Okay? It's that simple. So, let me kind of paraphrase everything I literally just said. Pharma is making a shit ton of money, nearly double everyone else on their investments because they have a monopoly that is granted by the federal government via the patent process. So if you have a patent on your stuff, the solution is simply submit to regulation, a price regulation. Yeah, I'm even okay with incorporating some of your advertising costs into this thing. Like, yeah, you're right. There's probably some incentive to, pushing the one product over another, and there's some value. But I'm not willing to pay the $5 billion fucking dollars that you spent on advertising, why the fuck do you need to spend $5 billion in advertising? Okay, like let's get real about this. Okay, and then if that's even too extreme for people, the simple fact of the matter is every country on the planet pays 1/5 or less of what we pay on our pharmaceutical costs. Like, this should infuriate you. So when we're the ones developing all this shit, and I'm not a nationalist, like, that's not what I'm arguing. Like, I'm saying we're the ones who fucking built this, and they're making money both off of us, 5 times everyone else, and then they're making money off of everyone else. It's ludicrous. We have a mechanism, we have something that is not unconstitutional, right? It's not, against our constitution. We have a mechanism to do something about this. Just regulate their prices. It's that simple. Anyways, any other questions? Let me know. I'm going to continue with this at my speed, not at your speed, but if people are interested, I do enjoy engagement. So hit me up, hit a like, follow, whatever.